So, good morning everyone and welcome to Kagyu Samye Edinburgh. So we're going to continue with the Milarepa's Songs of Liberation, and we're in the middle of exploring the relationship, the student-teacher relationship between Milarepa and his heart son Rechungpa. Obviously there's many songs because they were together for a long time, so I've just had to choose a few. They're all wonderful, so it's quite a hard job to choose any, but anyway, I've chosen a few ones that are sort of spread throughout their time together. But before all that, let's start off our session with the lineage prayers. So first of all, the prayer to the Root Lama, and then the Vajradhara lineage prayer. O glorious, precious Root Lama, above my head on a lotus moon seat, you care for me with great kindness. Please bestow the siddhis of body, speech, and mind. Great Vajradhara Tilunaro Marpa Mila Dharma Lord Gampopa, knower of the 3 times, omniscient Karmapa, holders of the 4 elder and 8 younger lineages, Drikuntaklung and the Salpa, glorious Drukpa, and so forth, masters of the profound path of Mahamudra, to the Dakpo instruction lineage, the peerless protectors of wanderers. Kagyu Lamas, I supplicate you, I uphold your lineage. Grant the blessings of your liberating lives. Just as revulsion is taught to be the legs of meditation, this meditator clings not to food and riches, and has severed the ties to worldly life. Grant your blessings for detachment from honor and gain. Just as devotion is taught to be the head of meditation, this meditator constantly prays to the Lama, who opens the vault of pith instructions. Grant your blessings for uncontrived devotion to well forth. Just as non-distraction is taught to be the body of meditation, this meditator simply remains without altering the fresh essence of whatever thought arises. Grant your blessings for parting from the concept of meditation. Just as thought is taught to be in essence Dharmakaya, for this meditator unhindered manifestation dawns. Nothing whatsoever dawning as whatever may appear. Grant your blessings to realize inseparable samsara nirvana. May I never in future lives part from authentic lamas, and embracing ever the glory of Dharma. May I perfect the qualities of the levels and paths, and thus swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara. So, Milarepa and Rechungpa. These songs are taken from a chapter. They're all from one chapter which is called Preparing to Have Joy at Death. Very important in the Buddhist view to have a good death, in the same way that you would want to have a good life. It's important to have a good death, because death is not the end of everything. It's the sort of gateway to the next life, in a way. So we want it to be prepared for it, and to be even joyful at it. And you can only be joyful if you know that you've had a good life and you've lived a good life and everything is hunky-dory. So I'll just first of all read a little bit of this introductory text into the first song, so that it sort of sets the scene of where they are and what they're doing. Namo Guru. So when the Jetsun Milarepa was staying at the Nyanang belly cave, the 8 worldly concerns were manifesting slightly for his heart son Rechungpa. So the belly cave, I think I've mentioned this before, I've actually been to this belly cave. It's on the border of Tibet and Nepal. And it's a big cave, it's like a big belly. And I found out that it was en route to where we were, and I asked if the other people who were not necessarily interested in going would mind waiting outside. So I went in on my own, and there was a couple of monks in there, but I was astonished to see not just the size of the cave, but the atmosphere of it. And I burst into tears. I don't mind admitting it was just so strong, the atmosphere. All these hundreds of years later, you know, when a great being like Milarepa has practiced somewhere, it changes the atmosphere, not just on a temporary basis. It really is hugely different. And so that's where they were practicing at this point in this belly cave. And he says that the 8 worldly concerns were manifesting slightly for his heart son Rechungpa. If you remember that on the last session we were talking about the 8 worldly concerns. So just to be brief about it, gain and loss, they're all antonyms of each other. So gain and loss, status and disgrace, praise and its opposite, blame, pleasure and pain. So apparently these things were coming up for Rechungpa, and Milarepa was concerned. And so it says that the Jetsun had advised him again and again to abandon them. But Rechungpa thought, I have already relinquished my homeland, so he'd sort of lessened his attachment to his homeland. He'd already relinquished his homeland. And he says, and I believe I'm untainted by the faults of the 8 worldly concerns. But the Jetsun says to relinquish one's homeland is only practicing the Dharma halfway. Can this really be so? He's kind of pushing it a bit, you know. He's sort of, he says that, but I've already done this and this, and you'd think that would be enough, kind of thing. So I'll just double check. He's still young, you know. So he says this to the Jetsun, and the Jetsun says, this is what is said in the general Dharma language. However, that in itself is not enough. And so he sang this song of realization. So he said, well, generally speaking, yes, what I've been telling you is correct, but if that's not enough, right, take this. So he's going to sing this song of realization. He begins always by paying his respect to Marpa, his teacher. The essence of the Lord of the family in the palace of great bliss is at the crown of my head. Guru, unstained by any faults, you are ornamented with a host of good qualities. Never satisfied when looking at him, I praise this Lord. Though you've abandoned your homeland for foreign lands, yet still you properly keep their customs, if you prefer to have praise and fame. At that point, you've arrived at the 8 concerns. Though you've abandoned food and service for small morsels, yet still you properly amass them in great hoards. If you prefer a full belly of tasty food, at that point you've arrived at the 8 concerns. Though you've abandoned fine woolen clothes for ragged garments, yet still you properly sew and tailor them. If you prefer them to be soft and warm, at that point you've arrived at the 8 concerns. Though you've abandoned house and home for earthen caves, yet still you make proper preparations. If you prefer one that will withstand attack, at that point you've arrived at the 8 concerns. Though you've abandoned large fields for small, yet still you properly keep to the ways of farming. If you prefer great, excellent crops to your small ones, at that point you've arrived at the 8 concerns. The true reality of samsara, it is free of any base. If analyzed, there is nothing to be identified. If that is realized, then that is nirvana. Yogi, always be free of any fixation towards the Dharmata, the empty nature of everything. Thus he sang. So let's just look at that in a bit more detail. So first of all, he's paying homage to Marpa, the essence of the lord of the family in the palace of great bliss. He sees him at the crown of his head, and he's a guru. He sees him as the guru that is unstained by any faults. He's the stainless guru, ornamented with a host of good qualities. And he says he's never satisfied when looking at him. What he means is that he never looks at him enough. I think it's slightly ambiguous, but it means that I can never get enough of you. You know, Marpa, you are beyond everything. I praise this Lord. So he says that at the beginning of every song. He always pays his utmost respect and devotion to Marpa. Then he's addressing Rechungpa. Though you've abandoned your homeland for foreign lands, yet still you properly keep to their customs. So in the first part, we did see Rechungpa in his homeland when he was still a young boy, and he has abandoned that. He's left his homeland and his relatives, not that they were that nice to him towards the end, a bit sort of money grabbing, but still, everyone feels attachment usually to their homeland. So he's abandoned that and he's done that, and yet he keeps to their customs. So he's sort of geographically left that place, but he still acts in ways that are in keeping with the custom of the homeland, which is not always, well, you could say worldly customs. Anyway, I'm not saying they're particularly bad ones, but they're still worldly ways of acting. If you prefer to have praise and fame, at that point you've arrived at the 8 concerns. So now he's like picking out the particular worldly concerns that are afflicting Rechungpa at this time. It maybe changes, it's not always the same thing, is it? So at this time he feels that he notices that he's rather concerned with praise and fame. And that's possibly because, if you remember, when Rechungpa was still living in his homeland, he used to get offerings from people and sponsorship, and people say, oh, he's so clever, this boy, he can recite all the scriptures, and so he would get a lot of praise and he would get rewarded. And if you're brought up like that, I guess you get a bit used to it, even maybe addicted to it. So even when it's not there, you kind of maybe hanker after that to some degree. And I think this is something that we can relate to in our current civilization, because people want to be famous for not even doing anything, So there's a lot of that around, being going after praise and fame. A real poison chalice if ever there was one. But anyway, so he's saying at that point, when that's become important to you, then you're all mixed up with the eight worldly concerns. At that point, you arrived at the eight worldly concerns. Though you've abandoned food and service for small morsels, yet still you properly amass them in great hoards. So, okay, so you've given up sort of really good food and, posh food or really tasty food. You've given that up. That's okay, that's good. And you're existing on small morsels, but you're hoarding them. So there's still attachment there. You're hoarding them. You properly amass them in great hoards. You've got loads of them. So there's still attachment. Even though you've given up the high quality food, the bits that you do have, you have lots and lots and lots of them. If you prefer a full belly of tasty food, at that point, you've arrived at the eight concerns. So yes, you've done some relinquishment, but it's not enough. It's still in your mind to hoard. Though you've abandoned fine woolen clothes for ragged garments, yet still you must properly sew and tailor them. I kind of relate to this one. My mum was a dressmaker. Although I've given up my ordinary clothes, I can sort of relate to Rechungpa on this one. Not that these are tailored, but you know what I mean. You can kind of it can be a hard one to let go of, especially if you live in Scotland and you don't have his tumo, his practice of tumo, which is is to be able to heat your body, so you don't have to rely on warm clothing. But it seems like he still has some preference for sewing them nicely, tailoring them a bit here and there, making them look really nice. so there's still a bit of that. So he's getting called out all over the place by Milarepa, basically. If you prefer them to be soft and warm, at that point you've arrived at the eight concerns. This is difficult for us to relate to, isn't it? Because of course we like soft, warm clothing. And so did he. But he has got Tummo practice, and he is a yogi. And, he's got Milarepa as the example. So he should be taking that as his example, not remembering what, all the stuff from his past, really, and how he used to be. Though you've abandoned house and home for earthen caves, yet still you make proper preparations. So I'm guessing here he makes it look as nice as he can and sort of tidies it up and maybe puts a few sort of stones nicely, sort of plays house in it a little bit, just doesn't take it just as it comes. I've done that as well in caves, played house in caves. Yes, it's still a cave, but you're kind of still organising it and making it into a little home. And he says, if you prefer one that will withstand attack, at that point you've arrived at the eight concerns. So it sounds like he's made sure that nobody can get in, and perhaps he's put some barriers there, and tried to make it safe, which you'd think would be sort of understandable, but not in Milarepa's book, because that's involving again with the eight worldly concerns. If you're really focused on your meditation, on the Dharma, then you don't have these concerns. You shouldn't be clinging into it and behaving as if you're living in a house in the middle of a town or something. There's probably a lot less likelihood of getting attacked anyway, being in a cave somewhere in the middle of nowhere. But basically, Rechungpa is still behaving as if he's in an ordinary house and kind of trying to make it comfortable and safe. Though you've abandoned large fields for small, yet still you properly keep to the ways of farming. if you prefer great, excellent crops to your small ones, at that point you've arrived at the 8 concerns. So it sounds like Rechungpa is still sort of cultivating the plants, for his food, rather than just gathering what's there. I mean, we know that that Milarepa existed on nettles. He would make soup out of nettles. And when I say soup, it's not like he had stock and salt and pepper or anything to make it tasty. It was nettles and water. That was it. And being, a great yogi with such perfect practice, he was able to live like that and remain healthy, remain strong. Well, Rechumpa's not there yet, and he still has the customs from his past, and he wants to, he's sort of tweaking it a bit, and he's making it, the planting stuff maybe, and, cultivating crops so he can have a few different ones and things like that. So he's spending his time doing that. So that's not good enough, that's not you're basically involving yourself with the 8 worldly concerns of preference, of wanting this but not that. So it shows a mindset. I know it's extremely strict, but it still shows a mindset of, I want it like this, I don't want it like that. And that's where all the trouble starts, isn't it? So how can you gain enlightenment when you still have that desire? It's still desire of wanting this and not wanting something else, At that point, you've arrived at the 8 concerns. And then at the end, he says, the true reality of samsara that is free of any base, if analyzed, there is nothing to be identified. This is hard to get our heads around because, we're not there yet. But from what I understand in my limited way, I think he means that the true reality of samsara is suffering, basically. The samsaric realm is suffering. But if it's free of any basis or base, free of this or that, I want this, I don't want that, I, other, any kind of reference point like that, if you analyze it, if you properly analyze it, there is nothing to be identified. Because the worldly concerns of this is good and that's bad don't truly exist. There's praise on one side, or blame on the other side, or pleasure on this side, pain on that side. Pleasure can turn into pain. Pain can turn into pleasure. We know that from our own experience. And so if they are capable of turning from one into the other, it shows that they have no true existence. Can we think of things in your own lives that started off pleasurable and then turned into being really painful? Or vice versa, something that started off painful, maybe you've been ill or something, but then you've had some really good experience through that, some realization through that. So that's become a valuable experience. So the changeableness of things shows us that there is no true thing to be identified. And if we realize that, if that is realized, then that is nirvana. Samsara is nirvana. Nirvana is samsara if you look at it in the wrong way, or the unrealized way. If you see things in the realized way, then that samsara has become nirvana. Because you've seen it how it is, and you're not constantly being mistaken by these opposites. Yogi, always be free of any fixation towards the Dharmata, the empty nature of everything. Basically, look beyond these appearances and these attachments. Even though you think you've given them up, you haven't. As long as you still feel like that, then you need to look into it more and see it see things for how they truly are. Because even a little attachment can grow. Oh, I'll just do it a little bit. I'll just have a slightly bigger little field or something, or I'll just put a few seeds in. What difference can that make? And then, oh, that doesn't look so good. I better just trim that one. It starts off a whole snowball effect, doesn't it? So he's seeing that, and he's saying, this is what you need to do. Oh, somehow I've let go. Where has it gone? Here we go. So that's what Milarepa is saying. Now, when we go through these, and I just put my 2 pennyworth in, that's not the end of it. You need to put your 2 pennyworth in, and that's what you do when you go home. Of course, while we're in here, you're thinking as well. And if you've got questions, we can talk about them at the end. But really, you need to be asking yourself and looking into the truth of it and seeing it in your own life, how this applies to your life, because that's what the whole point of it is. It's not about becoming experts in Milarepa. It's taking the truth of what Milarepa said and applying it to your own life. And okay, we're not at the level of Rechungpa and living in caves and that detached, but we need to look at our own attachments and their opposites on what we don't like, and learn something from it, and adapt our conduct accordingly. Otherwise, there's no point. As best we can, in stages. Thus he sang. So Rechungpa, what was Rechungpa said? He says, since my practice in the secret mantra's path of means has become stable, is it okay to rely upon just a few sensory pleasures? Maybe, little ones. So, he's always pushing the envelope, isn't he? But it's great that he does, because then it puts Milarepa, he has to give him more teachings. So we benefit from this. I sometimes wonder if he did it on purpose a little bit so that we would have these wonderful teachings. So the Jetsun replied, it is okay to use sensory pleasures to support your practice, but it's not okay to use your practice to support sensory pleasures. Mm-hmm. And he goes on to give an example. When I came from Marpa of Lodrak's side, so when he left Marpa of Lodrak's the place where Marpa was from, and he says when he left his teaching, like he'd learnt as much as he could, and it was his turn now to go and meditate, I had abandoned the 8 worldly concerns. He'd abandoned them. And Marpa told me, he told me that I should practice in reliance on a few sensory pleasures. So, you need to eat, you need to have something to drink or whatever. They're just a few basic pleasures, a few sensory pleasures. I practiced accordingly. And because of that, some good qualities arose in my mind stream. You, Rechungpa, you too should abandon the 8 concerns, and without thinking that you have any leisure for practicing, practice now. In other words, you should do what I did. This is advice from Marpa. If you don't take it from me, take it from Marpa. You need to abandon them. You can have a few necessities for your survival sort of thing, your sensory pleasures in that way, or you're not completely cut off, but don't have it the other way around, that it's all about sensory pleasures and that supports your practice. That would not be right. You have to do it in the correct way. And also he's emphasizing not to think that he's got all the time in the world. I'm still young, I've got leisure, I can do my practice tomorrow or a bit later, and in the meantime I'll just go for a little walk, or just practice now. You may be young, but you may die tomorrow. You never know. So he's reminding him about impermanence and not to just put off practicing. And then he sang this song of realization. The Lord Guru's life story is impressed upon my mind, and I never forget his advice that was like Amrita. If you think you have leisure to put off the Dharma, you will miss your chance. Mix Dharma with your mind stream and apply yourself in meditation. If you're attached to this life, then the next life will be difficult. To delight in temporary pleasure is a great hindrance. If you think you have leisure to put off the Dharma, that is foolish. If you fear your death, apply yourself in meditation. If you engage in negative action, you'll fall to the lower realms. If you're deceitful or conniving, you'll just lose yourself. If you develop malicious intentions, you will exhaust your merit. If you want to purify your karmic results, apply yourself in meditation. If you wish to wear nice clothes, your outlook is confused. If you wish to eat good food, you'll strive in negative conduct. If you long for pleasing words, you'll be wrecked by fame. Abandon the 8 concerns and apply yourself in meditation. If you wish for a rich patron, you'll encounter enemies. If you wish to be surrounded by many retinues, you'll have great regret. If you want to amass many things, you'll have many wrong views. Make your mind harmonious with the Dharma and apply yourself in meditation. If you can meditate, then realization will dawn in your mind. If you cannot, then you'll just have empty speech and lies. Since you don't have much time left to meditate, exert yourself in meditation without distraction. If you mix your mind with Dharma, everywhere you'll have bliss. Remaining alone is also excellent. My son Rechungpa, let your mind abide in the precious samadhi of clarity, emptiness, meditation. Thus he sang. Okay, so let's have a look at that in a bit more detail again. So the Lord Guru's life story is impressed upon my mind. Milarepa knows the life story of Marpa. And when we talk about life stories in this kind of context, we're talking about the life of liberation, not just he went there, he did that, he saw this person, not the ordinary history, but the life of liberation and what led him to become liberated. Those are the salient points that's impressed upon his mind. It's gone like like if you press a mold, it's there forever. And I never forget his advice that was like Amrita. Amrita is like heavenly nectar. That's what he's nourished by. If you think you have leisure to put off the Dharma, you will miss your chance. You will miss your opportunity. This is all about his precious human life, and the fact that he's come a good way. He's had good fortune, really good fortune, and yet if he puts it off and thinks, oh, I can do it tomorrow, then he's going to miss the opportunity, because you never know when you might die. And he's got such amazing confluence of good opportunities and good fortune that's come together to relinquish that for the sake of something relatively trivial. It's not, you'll miss your chance. Mix Dharma with your mind stream and apply yourself in meditation. So you really need to mix it in with your mind so that's the way you think. It wouldn't occur to you to think in another way. It's fully mixed in. It's not just, it's like if you were baking a cake and you had all the ingredients but they weren't properly mixed up together, you're not going to get the results. You're going to get something that's a bit cake-like, but you're not going to get the cake. So I don't know why I always think of food metaphors. But maybe that's, it's something I need to give up. Telling me something, I think. But anyway, it means really mix it in so it's not just superficial. If you're attached to this life, the next life will be difficult. So he's not saying you shouldn't value this life. You should definitely value this life, and you should use it in the best way possible, but not be attached to all the sort of sensory pleasures of it. It's not even saying you shouldn't have them, but you shouldn't have the attachment to them. That's where the problem is. But if you do have, then the next life will be difficult. So you're building up trouble for yourself in the lives to come. To delight in temporary pleasure is a great hindrance. So he's not saying that you shouldn't have a temporary pleasure, but if you see it for what it is, that it's temporary, it's not such a big deal. You can, I suppose, enjoy a little bit, but don't make such a big deal about it, because it's just a temporary thing. It doesn't mean anything much. And so to put more great store on something like that would be foolish. If you fear your death, apply yourself in meditation. So if you want to have a good death, you better start meditating. If you engage in negative action, you will fall into the lower realms. So anything really negative that you do, the karma of that is to fall into the lower realms. So not only does it affect this lifetime, but also the future lifetimes. You might even think this lifetime you've stolen something or whatever, and you've got away with it, nobody's caught you, and you think, oh, great, okay, do that again. So you're setting up another negative deed because you got away with it. That's the worst thing. And the main thing is that you haven't got away with it, because you can't get away with karma. Karma is beyond the law, the normal, the sort of legal sort of law, but the law of karma is unmistaken. So any negativity will have a negative result. Anything positive will have a positive result. Anything neutral will have a neutral result. So it's unerring, the law of karma. So you never get away with anything, basically. And if you do negative actions, you will fall into lower realms of hungry ghost realm, or even the hell realm if it's very, very negative. If you're deceitful or conniving, you'll just lose yourself. Again, it's like if you try to get things in a roundabout way, and maybe if I just do a little, nobody will know, and if I just do this, you connive. You have this mental attitude and behavior of trying to get your way without anybody noticing it, so it becomes deceitful. You'll just lose yourself. You will lose all the good qualities. You lose your way, because you get caught up with the lies and the deceit, and when first we practice to deceive, what a tangled web we weave. It's true, isn't it? If you develop malicious intentions, you will exhaust your merit. So you might have some merit, you might have done some good things, you got some merit or virtue, but then you have some malicious intent, like somebody you try to do something, or you even just thinking of an intent of doing something malicious, you may not even actually do it, but you have the intent to do it. You'll exhaust your merit, even just thinking in a malicious way. If you want to purify your karmic results, apply yourself in meditation. So if you notice, any, because we're not by any means perfect, are we? We have like little sort of bits of jealousy, or bits of this, or bits of that. So you don't just let it fester and grow and become more and more. You apply yourself in meditation. You look at it honestly, and you see the downside of it. You see it for how it is. And the way to do that is to reflect on it and to meditate. That is the method by which these things are purified. If you wish to wear nice clothes, your outlook is confused. If that's sort of very important to you to have nice clothes, then your outlook's confused. If somebody gave you something like a nice robe or something, and you could wear it, but you wouldn't be bothered about it. But to go searching after it, and really, oh no, I definitely want. I don't want that one. It's not very good quality. That one, I want that one. So that's where it all starts to go wrong. It might start with a small thing, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and then it's like, if you think of very wealthy people, you think the richest Murdochs, Elon Musks, and whoever, you think, it's never enough, is it? It's always you want more and better. So when it starts small, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. If you wish to eat good food, you'll strive in negative conduct. Well, he's not meaning that you should eat bad food. He doesn't mean don't eat poison food or something. Eat something that you can nourish you. But if by good food he means something like really good quality and the best quality and high class, and then you'll strive to get the money to buy that, or whatever it takes to get that, and you'll strive in negative conduct, and that's what we do, isn't it? Well, we want to make money because we don't want to just eat ordinary food. We want to go to the top restaurants and all of this kind of thing. If you long for pleasing words, you'll be wrecked by fame. Now, we don't really like to hear criticism, usually. We do like to hear praise. Somebody was asking me the other day about feeling that they have to have a student be validated by the teachers, by their exam results, by looking always outwardly for validation of who they are. That's a really uncomfortable position to be in. I mean, whatever we want to accomplish, whether we should try our best. If it's a good thing to do, obviously, not if it's a bad thing, but if it's a skillful thing to do, then we try our best. But not be kind of wrecked if we don't. Going after fame and recognition, and sort of, oh, you're wonderful, that's great, well done, and all this. And then if somebody just says, well, it's okay, then we feel, oh, what's going on? Why am I not getting the recognition? Then again, you're hiding to nothing, aren't you? You'll be wrecked by fame. You'll want fame, and that really is a poison chalice. Abandon the 8 concerns and apply yourself in meditation. If you wish for a rich patron, you'll encounter enemies. Supposing you get a rich patron, that could well attract jealousy from other people. Oh, He's all right, he's got so-and-so backing him, you know, why I haven't got that? And it attracts bad feeling. And that's just one example of how it can attract enemies. If you wish to be surrounded by many retinues, you'll have great regret. So you might want to be surrounded by people praising you and, you know, looking up to you and hero worshipping you and attending to your every need. That's not going to work well. You'll become reliant on that. And then if you don't have it, you'll be, what's going on? Nobody brought me my tea today. And, you know, you'll feel disgruntled. You think for yourself how that can make you feel bad, even though you've got what you want, how that can so easily turn. And also, who's to say that in those retinues there's not people jealous of you and plotting against you? I mean, it didn't go too well for Caesar, did it? You know, so there's many things that you can think of in that way. If you want to amass many things, you'll have many wrong views. Basically, keep it simple. You know, the more you want, the more effort you have to make to get it, and then you've got to try and keep it, and then you'll be worried if you lose it, and all the attachment that having many things brings. And so you'll end up with all these wrong views, the opposite of what you want. If you want to really become a fully liberated person, then you don't do all this. You don't want to increase your attachment. You want to decrease it. You want to keep your life as simple as possible, so you can concentrate on what is important. And what is that? Applying yourself in meditation. Make your mind harmonious with the Dharma and apply yourself in meditation. So once you've got a good view, the Dharmic view, your mind is harmonious with that. It doesn't become a struggle anymore. You're doing what you know to be good. You're in harmony with that view. So it's not a fight. Oh, if only I could have a bit of this, or just that, a little bit of that. You know, you're coming from a good place in your mind. Because you've meditated and because you've reflected and because you've taken it on board, this view, it's no longer in opposition with something that you want. It is how you think. It is who you've become. If you can meditate, then realization will dawn in your mind. If you cannot, then you'll just have empty speech and lies. So when you really can meditate, that realization will dawn. It will open your mind, it will enlighten your mind, it will light up your mind. That will be who you are and how you think. And if you can't do that, if you can't meditate, then all you'll have is empty speech and lies. So empty speech about, well, I did sit for half an hour today and I've meditated, and so I would recommend, and then profess to know about it and spout out your ignorance to other people. That's just empty speech and lies. It's not coming from your true realization. Since you don't have much time left to meditate, exert yourself in meditation without distraction. Stop thinking about this and that and the other. Get on with it. And if you do that, if you mix your mind with the Dharma, if it's really fully integrated, then everywhere you will have bliss. You know, he's asking him, or he's advising him, to give up all this nonsense, and if you do, you will have bliss, you will be in bliss. So it's not like you're going to have a terrible time and it's all going to be horrible and you'll be suffering. No, it's the opposite of suffering. You'll be blissful. Because you'll have mastery over all these illusions and wrong ways of seeing. So you might think, oh, I've got to give up this, I've got to give up that, and whatever. You think of all the attachment side of things. But when you're free, basically, you're free of all that. And that's blissful. Remaining alone is also excellent. You're fine if you're alone, not alone, you're fine either way. My son Rechungpa, let your mind abide in the precious samadhi of clarity, emptiness, meditation. That's the prize, that's the great jewel. It's like, don't accept these glass beads when you could have a diamond. You think of that when you sort of try to trade with primitive people and you give them a glass bead, but you take their diamond or something like that. It's like you don't behave like that. Like you're accepting this sort of illusory so-called pleasures when you could be in this state of ultimate realization and bliss. Thus he sang. But Milarepa thought to himself, he can see where Rechungpa's at. Even if Rechungpa doesn't say it, he knows exactly where he's at. And so Milarepa thought, Rechungpa has only lessened his involvement with the 8 worldly concerns somewhat, but his hidden faults have not been fully revealed. I must do this by inciting him to revulsion. So he knows that, even after all this amazing song of realization, it's only touching the surface. He needs to go in with something stronger medicine. He has to incite him to revulsion. That's what he's going to do. Because why? He's got, it sounds hard, doesn't it? But he's got nothing but love and affection for Rechungpa. And he knows that as long as his faults remain hidden to Rechungpa himself, they're not hidden to Milarepa, you can see them clear as day. But to Rechungpa, he still thinks he's doing okay-ish, and so he's still deluded by them. And so seeing Milarepa wants to reveal them to him fully so that he gets it, he really gets it. And so the only way he can do this now is to incite him through revulsion. It's going to take strong medicine. So Milarepa decides that the only way to really get through to Rechungpa is to give him a harder lesson, incite him to revulsion. He wants to make him revolted by all this samsara business. So let's see what he does. When they came upon Nyanang, is a place, Nyanang. So they went off to Nyanang. When they came there were many butchers. The master and his disciple, Rechungpa, went begging for alms. So they came to this place, village, town, whatever, and there were quite a lot of butchers there. And there were stacks of flesh, piles of animal heads, flayed skins displayed, and pools of blood collecting all around. If you've ever seen maybe if you've been in some countries, you can see this in the marketplace. You see, not a nice sight. Many sentient beings were tethered, waiting to be slaughtered. So even the ones that were alive were tethered, and that was what they were going to be slaughtered. They could see there other animals that had been already slaughtered, so they knew what was happening to them. And in the center of all this was an old man from Mun is a place, with a crippled arm. So his arm was crippled, it wasn't working very well. A large black sheep managed to escape the man's grasp. So he had hold of this black sheep, but because he was crippled, so then he couldn't keep hold of it. And as it ran, the sheep's intestines were pulled out through a small tear in its flesh. So it was trying to get away, and it did get away, and all its guts came out through a small tear in its flesh. Terrified, the sheep let out screams, limping and hobbling over to the Jetsun and his son for protection. So somehow this sheep with its guts all hanging out limped over to Milarepa and Rechungpa for protection. As the sheep's life came to its end, of course it died, it couldn't recover from that, the Jetsun Milarepa wept with many tears and performed transference for the sheep, power, transferring the consciousness of the sheep, placing its consciousness on the Bodhisattva path. So this sheep's consciousness was placed on the Bodhisattva path. And then he sang this song of realization with unbearable great compassion. Emma is like an exclamation. Sentient beings of samsara, look to the path of liberation. Alas, these here with such negativity, such a shame. Ignorant of karma and this human birth with leisures, how devastating is this killing of beings? How regrettable to have such self-delusion. How shameful, indeed, to kill one's parents. What's to be done with this stacking of killed flesh? What to do with all this pooling of blood? Eating meat, however hungry one is, such confused perception, thinking anything. Such negativity without any compassion. Delusive ignorance that's obscured everything. What can be done with such cultivation of negativity? Giving torment however they please, such wickedness of those who act this way. How shameful. Oh, such sadness and heartache. So busy with negativity in all that they do, later they won't remember a single moment. When I see such people, I fear for them. I think of those with negative conduct, and I am disturbed. Rechungpa, doesn't it make you think of the sublime Dharma? If it does, then give rise to sadness and disillusionment. If you meditate, go to the mountain retreats. If you contemplate the Guru's kindness. If you escape something, escape from the root of non-virtue. If you let go of something, let go of mundane deeds. If you keep something, keep your promise to practice. If you understand, then bring your life to Dharma. Thus he sang. Ooh. Well, it's very graphic, isn't it? You can imagine the scene. I think most of it is fairly self-explanatory, but we'll just go through it anyway. So, these sentient beings of samsara look to the path of liberation. Alas, these people, these butchers, these people involved with killing, these here with such negativity, such a shame. Ignorant of karma in this human birth with leisures, how devastating is this killing of beings? So they don't understand karma. They cannot understand karma. If they did, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. Ignorant of karma in this human birth with leisures. So they've got this human birth, it's got the leisures and all the things that you need to be able to have a good life, and yet you spend it like this. How devastating is this killing of beings? You just carry on without giving a moment's thought to how you should live. How regrettable to have such self-delusion, to be so deluded that this is how you behave, that you think this is a good way to behave. How shameful, indeed, to kill one's parents. Now, by that, he's not saying that they're killing the parents of this life, but if you understand the view of multiple lives, of reincarnation, of having been the mother of other beings and they have been your mother, then chances are that when you kill animals, they will have been your mother or father in previous lifetimes. That will happen. So for Milarepa, he sees this so clearly, it's as if they're killing their mother and father right there and then. That's how because that's his understanding of it. What's to be done with this stacking of killed flesh? What to do with all this pooling of blood? So he's looking at all these flesh cut into stacks of meat and blood pooling around. What's to be done with it? Eating meat, however hungry one is, such confused perception, thinking anything, thinking any old thing, thinking this is a good thing to do, to kill these beings. That's so confused, such a confused perception. You don't know what you're doing, basically. Such negativity without any compassion. Also, it sounds that the way that they were doing it, I mean, sometimes you could argue that, it's possible to kill beings humanely. I mean, it's not good either, but it sounds like that was really gruesome. What they were doing is, just any old way, just kill it like it doesn't have any kind of value other than as meat to sell and eat. No compassion whatsoever for the animals. Delusive ignorance that's obscured everything. So deluded you can't see what you're doing anymore. These people, they cannot see what they're doing anymore. They think it's okay. So deluded. What can be done with such cultivation of negativity? So instead of cultivating good qualities of compassion and wisdom, they're cultivating negativity by doing these horrible acts, giving torment however they please, not even thinking about it. I've seen films of people, the way they behave in abattoirs sometimes, not even having a care for the animal, just kicking the head around like a football. Things like that, I've seen on film. People do that. They become so deluded and so caught up in it that they don't even have any respect whatsoever for themselves or for the animal. Giving torment however they please. Such wickedness of those who act this way. How shameful. Oh, such sadness and heartache. So busy with negativity in all that they do. Later they won't remember a single moment. They don't even think about it. It doesn't even affect them. That's the way they behave, and then they go off and they go home and no big deal. It doesn't even enter into their mind to think maybe they've done something bad, because they've become so ingrained with it. You forget about it. When I see such people, I fear for them. I think of those with such negative conduct, and I am disturbed. I mean, disturbed in the sense of upset, kind of like, I'm disturbed because I can only see bad results from this for them. So he's got compassion for those people who are acting in this way out of such ignorance and such delusion. Where are they going to go when they die? There's only one way, and that's not up, And it's so negative and so ingrained that it really upsets him. He's weeping when he's seeing all this. Rechungpa, doesn't it make you think of the sublime Dharma? After witnessing this hellish scene, doesn't it make you think of the sublime Dharma? What could be more different? What could be more wonderful? If it does, then give rise to sadness and disillusionment. So you should be feeling sad and disillusioned about this hellhole, this awful place, and there's awful things going on. So use that sadness and disillusionment. If you meditate, go to mountain retreats. If you contemplate the Guru's kindness. If you escape something, if you want to escape something, escape from the roots of non-virtue. Leave them, leave that behind. If you let go of something, let go of mundane worldly deeds. If you keep something, keep your promise to practice. And if you understand, then bring your life to the Dharma. Your life and the Dharma are not two. You bring them inseparable. You live the Dharma. You don't just read about it or practice it on occasions. You live it. Thus he sang. Then disillusionment and renunciation arose deep within Rechungpa, and he wept with many tears. Lama, now I will do as the Guru says, and I will abandon the 8 concerns and the provisions of food obtained through negativity. I will meditate. To which isolated mountain will we, master and student, go and meditate? He's asking, where shall we go then? This is what I want to do. I'm decided and I'm firm about it. Please, where shall we go? And so then, in reply, the Jetsun sang this song of realization. Emma, oh dear, it means oh dear kind of thing. It's an exclamation, oh dear. Sentient beings of samsara are in darkness, obscured by negative karma. The thief of conceptuality creates much agitation. The jewel of meditation will likely be lost. It's time to set the watchman of non-distraction. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. The continuum of samsara is a long, treacherous path. The bandits of the 5 poisons agitate and churn. They'll likely seize the child of awareness. It's time to seek out the guide of primordial wisdom. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. The mountain of faults is very high. The afflictions are like the hunter and his dog. It's likely they will kill the deer of samadhi. It's time to flee to the ultimate true nature. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. In the worn-down house of the illusory body, days and hours fall like rain. The drops of the years and months beat down. The worn house of the illusory body will soon collapse. It's time to make preparation to have joy at death. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. The ocean of samsara is very deep. It's time to swim with the child of awareness. It's likely you'll be distracted by the waves of confusion. It's time to escape to the land of non-duality. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. The swamp of lust is truly vast, and the thick mud of home life is very deep. It's likely the elephant of renunciation will get stuck within. It's time to pursue a place for the meditation of liberation. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. The view and meditation of the lower vehicle is a steep precipice. The immature with inferior minds have many deeds. It's likely they'll fall off the cliff of the 6 realms. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to the Lachi Snow Mountain. Okay, so we'll look at that in a bit more detail. So, oh my goodness, sentient beings of samsara are in darkness, obscured by negative karma. So, samsara is so confusing, so obscuring of our view, that we forget, we don't even understand about karma. As we're in the dark, we're in the dark, obscured by negative karma, because the more negative we are, we act, we think, we act, then the more entrenched we get. And what began maybe as something quite small grows and grows and grows, and then we're completely in the dark. We don't know what day it is, we don't know what we're doing, we don't even know if it's good or bad. The thief of conceptuality creates much agitation. The jewel of meditation will likely be lost. You know, we get so busy with our concepts of this is how it is and that's how it is, and it's kind of like, it becomes very confusing because everybody's got different concepts. We all argue about it. That's what academia is basically based on, isn't it? It's arguing the toss about this concept versus that concept. And we get lost in there because we're not meditating. We're only thinking these things, and it's not got meditation as the base. So therefore, it's confused. Thinking, if it's based on reason of and the experience of meditation, that's fine. But mainly, we just spout this stuff because we read it somewhere or because it's in opposition to what somebody else says. So it just gets confused in these concepts. And it's time to set the watchman of non-distraction. So without, this is the whole, when you're sitting to meditate, your mind has to be watching itself. It's like the watchman of your own mind. That's who you're watching, that's what you're watching, to see where these concepts and confusions arise. It's easy to sort of see other people and you think, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. We have to concern ourselves with us, with our own mind, because that's our delusion, isn't it? That's their business, this is our business. So we need to have this watcher of delusion. When we're meditating, set the watchman of non-distraction. Don't allow yourself to be distracted by this and that. And men with negativity never think that death will come. This is the constant refrain. So most these people that are doing such negativity, they don't even have a thought about death. They just go on, carry on in their own way, and they don't even give a thought to what the consequences will be, the death and the lives to come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. This is where we're going to go. We're going to meditate. This is where we'll be. So this is in answer to Rechungpa, how we're going to do this, where we're going to go. The continuum of samsara is a long, treacherous path. When you get caught up in it, it's long, it's treacherous, it's winding, it's very hard to get out of. The bandits of the 5 poisons are agitating and churning. The 5 bandits are the ignorance, attachment, hatred, jealousy, pride, the poisons of all of these bandits, they're called. These are the things that are waiting to ambush you. And where are they? They're in your mind. That's where it starts. So when the mind's disturbed and you let in, sort of this, let's say, hatred or jealousy or whatever it is, it might start off as something small, but you need to nip it in the bud. And in order to do that, you need to be watching your mind in meditation. Because they'll likely seize the child of awareness. You may have some awareness, but if you don't tend to the landscape, the inner landscape of your mind, then the bandits will come out and grab the child of awareness, and that awareness is lost. You get confused again. It's time to seek out the guide of primordial wisdom. This is such amazing teaching on how to meditate here. He's teaching Rechungpa how to meditate. And of course us. It's time to seek out the guide of primordial wisdom. This thing that you want, you seek out, you want to seek out, this guide of primordial wisdom is within you. It's not you go and get it from somewhere else. How do you access it? Through meditation. Men with negativity never even think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. The mountain of faults is very high. We accumulate faults upon fault upon fault, and you end up with a big mountain of faults. And the afflictions, which are the same as the poisons really, or how they manifest, are like the hunter and his dog. It's likely they will kill the deer of samadhi. So your samadhi is your meditational state, but it's like it's prone to be disturbed or even killed by the hunter and his dog, by these afflictions. So you need to see what's going on. Keep watch in your own mind. It's time to flee to the ultimate true nature. That's where you need to be residing, internally residing, in the ultimate true nature. Men with negativity never think that death will come, so they don't do anything about their lives. Rechungpa and I will go to the snow mountain. In the worn-down house of the illusory body, days and hours fall like rain. So the illusory body is talking about the physical body, and it's a worn-down house. It's getting a bit dilapidated or a bit worn, because it's subject to time, to the days and hours that are falling like rain, the drops of the years and the months beat down. It's constantly being rained on by time, and it's becoming worn down and will soon collapse. This illusory body will soon collapse. And we never really think of that so much, but we should notice what's happening to our bodies. And you don't need to get depressed by it, but you do need to make provisions, because it is only a temporary body, at the most probably 80 or 90 years, and likely much less than that, and who knows. So it's time to make preparations to have joy at death. And when are you going to do that? In this life. There's no other time you can do it. I remember Rinpoche saying to me, this is why we practice. It's not just for this life, to have a nice life. It's for we practice in order to have a good death and lives beyond that. Time to make preparation to have a joy at death, to die joyfully, not with regret. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. The ocean of samsara is very deep. You can get really overwhelmed, you get stuck in it, or you get drowned in it, drowned in this ocean of samsara. It's time to swim with the child of awareness. You can swim out of it with through the child of awareness. Also, it's likely you'll be distracted by waves of confusion. He continues this same marine metaphor. So the waves of confusion, they appear in one way or another. Sometimes they look very attractive. You can get drawn in, You can be distracted by them. So it's time to escape to the land of non-duality. Non-duality, well, it's the same as the worldly things, isn't it? It's like the opposites. Not this and that. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. The swamp of lust is truly vast, and the thick mud of home life is very deep. So home life, you get sucked in, you just sort of get really kind of stuck in it. It's likely the elephant of renunciation will get stuck within. I mean, I've seen a film of an elephant that's stuck in, a wildlife film of an elephant stuck in mud, a young elephant stuck in mud, and then the big elephant managed to get it out, but sometimes they get really stuck. Well, what a metaphor. Although I find it quite amazing that Milarepa, who lived in Tibet, I don't think they have elephants in Tibet, do they? Maybe they did. Well, anyway, he can fly wherever he wants to go, so you've probably seen them in Africa. But anyway, it's a very potent image, isn't it, of an elephant being stuck in mud. That's what lust is like. So it's time to pursue a place for the meditation of liberation. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to the Lachi Snow Mountain. The view and meditation of the lower vehicle is a steep precipice. Now that's a bit, you could say, a little bit controversial if you happen to cling to what one would call the lower vehicle, but what he means is that the lower vehicles of Hinayana, for example, is only as good as far as it goes, but it doesn't go that way. And so the immature with inferior minds have many deeds. So it takes you so far, but your thinking is still mixed in a worldly way, less than if you hadn't practiced that faith, but still caught up in worldly ways of thinking. And therefore, if you have still worldly ways of thinking, there'll be deeds that you do attached to that as a result of that. And so, it's not sure that you're going to reach liberation in that way. You have to go beyond that. He's not saying don't go there, but go beyond that, because it's like a steep precipice. The full understanding is not there. You can fall off of that. It has its dangers. You're not fully there yet. It's likely they'll fall off the cliff of the 6 realms, and you can end up back where you started, or at least not progressed fully. So, he's not saying it's valueless, but you have to go beyond that, basically. Men with negativity never think that death will come. Rechungpa and I will go to Lachi Snow Mountain. So, thus he sang, and then the master and his disciple departed together, and most of the people at the market who had heard all of this and see what was going on, and the people that were coming to the market maybe to buy their meat, not just the butchers there, but the people of the village or the town, they heard Milarepa's song, and they uncontrollably gave rise to faith. they couldn't help but be affected. And so with this, they wanted to show their respect to the Jetsun and his son, to Milarepa and Rechungpa. And so what do? They offered. They wanted to make an offering to them to show their respect and their thanks. So they offered them many material provisions to them, foods and different things. So Milarepa and Rechungpa said that it was food produced through negativity and the 8 worldly concerns. So without accepting the provisions, they went on to Lachi Snow Mountain. This is the cycle of preparing to have joy at death. So you could say, in a way, the final teaching that Milarepa gave not only to Rechungpa but to the people of that place was by not accepting their offerings. They meant well. They were grateful for the teaching. They'd been affected by it. They probably offered him meat. They probably did. And people do. People think that's the best thing, that the best food. It's got more protein in it or whatever, or it's more, better for you than just plants or something. So they probably would offer him meat. This happens with lamas all the time. I've been traveled with lamas many times, and the people always give him meat. And that's people you'd think would not think in that way, let alone the people who have gone to a marketplace full of meat. So off they went to meditate in Lachi Snow Mountain. I think he finally got through, made the point to Rechungpa, and he couldn't wait to get away. Take me to the mountain. Let's meditate. So let's us meditate just a little bit. I haven't. When I say a little bit, I mean we've come to the end of the session. I'm not saying in general, but only a little bit, but a few minutes anyway, just to have a taste of bliss rather than meat. So just straighten your posture up, and you don't need to be thinking of concepts and this and that. Just let all these words of wisdom sink into your mind, become part of your mind experience, and remembering what Milarepa said about distraction and about setting the watchman. And just relax your body, relax your mind, breathing normally, but with a little bit more awareness, just to help your mind settle. Placing the body in a good posture and placing your mind and placing the watchman of your mind. So even just 10 minutes is better than no minutes. But when you're practicing at home, or here when you're in a meditation session, then obviously you can go deeper. So in terms of practicing the songs at home, going through the songs on your own, so there's 4 of them in this chapter, and so you could maybe take one a week and read through it. Maybe in your session time you could use some of it to read through again and contemplate, reflect on things. You'll have different things will come into your mind. I can only tell you what comes into my mind when I read those songs. So maybe that will awaken different things in your mind. And then spend at least half the time meditating afterwards. Study is one thing, and then on the basis of that you meditate, but you don't kind of mix it too much together. There are two aspects basically. So then you just sit with it and let it sink in. Study and meditation. So let's finish our session today by dedicating the merit of our practice. Sanam de tamche sekpani topne ni pedanam pamche ni jigana chi bala drukpai sipe sole droa droa sho. Through the wholesomeness of this practice, may all mental defilements be overcome, and may all beings be liberated from the ocean of samsara, stirred by the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. Okay, so you've got plenty to be going on with. We should be very thankful to Rechungpa, for being a bit hard-headed, because then it inspires Milarepa to have to dig deeper to teach him on a deeper level, but not forgetting he is compared to ordinary people he's already got quite a lot of realization. He's a yogi, so we should remember that when Milarepa is talking to Rechungpa, he's talking to someone who has realization. Of course, he's not perfect yet, but it's not like he's talking to the people in the marketplace. He's talking to a yogi. We should bear that in mind. Okay, so see you next time.